This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. So we've all got them, haven't we? That one friend who always finds the best travel deals, who always picks the right cars for points, and who somehow ends up in first class while you're back in the middle seat in coach. Well, Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things travel finance, like how to book busy season trips without that busy season sticker shock that we all hate, how to avoid paying for upgrades you won't use, and how travel advisors can snag secret perks you didn't even know how to ask for. How useful is all of that. So travel smarter and spend less with help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. Armchair Explorer is a part of the Voyescape podcast network. Check out all of their shows from around the world at voyescape.com. Hey guys, welcome to the Armchair Explorer, where the world's greatest adventurers tell their best story from the road. I'm Aaron Miller. I'm a travel writer. And this episode, we are taking on one of the world's most grueling races. It's 9 months long, it's 45,000 nautical miles, and it's through some of the toughest seas on the planet. It's the Ocean Race. We're about to sail around the world. Are you ready? Yeah, me too. Let's go. The Ocean Race is often described as the longest and toughest professional sporting event in the world. It's definitely the toughest team challenge in sailing. And we have two-time Ocean Race veteran and one of the best offshore sailors on the planet, Mark Towill, taking us on this adventure. Because make no mistake, this is more than a race. It's more than just a competition. This is a true adventure in every sense of the word. And as we'll hear, it pushes the people who take part in it to the very limit of their physical and mental endurance. It's a great story, not just because of the adventure. And by the way, I have always wanted to know what it feels like to be alone in the vastness of the ocean, just surrounded by this huge blue void on all sides. I want to know what that feels like. And I'm also interested what it feels like to sail around the entire world, all seven seas, powered by nothing but your wits and the wind. I want to know how that would change your perspective on the planet, how big the planet would feel afterwards, how truly vast the oceans would feel. But it's a great story also because of why Mark is doing this race. He's racing not just to win, but to raise awareness about ocean sustainability and the problem of ocean plastics in particular. And that is something very close to my heart. So quick aside here, I got connected to Mark through a friend of mine, Thomas Kimber, and his crew down at Karun Sunglasses in Patagonia. That's Karun. And it's a Mapuche word, an indigenous Mapuche word that means we are nature. And these guys are awesome. I was doing a story about them for an issue on plastic pollution in National Geographic Traveler. And I actually got to go down and spend a week with them. And they do amazing work. They turn discarded plastic fishing nets into designer shades, and they employ local people to do that, and then they help those local people reinvest that money into kind of small micro entrepreneurial projects that really transform the lives of their communities. It's an incredible business, it's an incredible project, and the shades look awesome. So I just wanted to give them a big shout out and say thank you for connecting me with Mark. They sponsor Mark's team. So if you're interested to find out more, please do go check that out. I'll put all the details up on the show notes in the website so you can do that, or just check out karunworld.com, Karun world.com. I also want to say just a real quick thank you to you guys for listening and supporting the show. Please remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please also help the show grow by leaving a review, telling a friend, a fellow explorer. Help spread this message of ours, this message of love for the outdoor and adventure and the pure joy of exploring this amazing planet of ours, whether that's on your own 2 feet or just in your own comfy armchair back home. And if this episode whets your appetite for your own sailing adventure, well, you can check out the website where you can book trips inspired by the show, and I can also work directly with you to help you plan that awesome adventure you've been dreaming about. armchair-explorer.com. But for now, don't worry about all of that. Just close your eyes because we're about to go on a fantastic voyage. we're about to sail around the world in one of the toughest ocean races on the planet.
I grew up in a family that had no idea about sailing at all. And in fact, my parents both got seasick, and I got signed up for sailing very randomly, fourth grade spring break activity when my working parents were looking for essentially daycare for my brother and I. And I just fell in love with it. I think one of the things that still to this day keeps me coming back to sailing is just the adventure of it. And I remember when I was quite young and getting into it, just the idea of being in control of your own boat and being able to explore unknown places and, sail out the channel and into the ocean. And that idea of kind of breaking out of your comfort zone and what you know and doing something different, and the fact that it was dynamic and weather's changing every day and you have to learn to, adjust to the conditions and optimize yourself. I think there's so many really unique metaphors within sailing.
There is just something incredibly romantic about the idea of sailing, isn't there? It's something about sailing away from the safety of the land and into the wilds of the deep, uncharted blue. It just harks back to this golden age of exploration and adventure, which is really appealing to me in these days of jumbo jets and coach tours and Google Maps and all the rest. So I love how it's that part of it that he fell in love with first too. And by the way, isn't that kind of awesome? His parents get seasick. He wasn't born into this. It's not in his DNA. He was just randomly thrown into a summer camp and ended up becoming one of the top sailors in the world. You never know what life has in store for you, and that is all part of the adventure. So keep your eyes open. But he fell in love with just the pure exploration and adventure of sailing, and that inspiration just grew and grew.
Growing up here in Hawaii, I was very fortunate to be involved with an organization called the Polynesian Voyaging Society. And there's a canoe called the Hokulea, which was built back in the 70s as really an experiment initially to prove that Hawaii and Polynesia was intentionally populated through migration, and essentially that Polynesia was navigated on these canoes hundreds and hundreds of years ago with no modern navigational technology. So very simply by using the stars and the wind and the moon and the sun and all the elements available to you. So it was an art form that was very much alive 600-700 years ago and was on the brink of being lost. The Hokulea has become now this cultural icon, at least here in Hawaii, and I guess a little bit wider around the Pacific, which has reawoken this art of traditional wayfinding. It's kind of in some ways the exact opposite of racing, where we're trying to squeeze every ounce of boat speed out of our boat, and we're trying to optimize around each update to the weather and racing and our competition and stacking weight. It's very focused on the precision of performance, whereas when you're on the Hokulea, it's exactly the opposite. It's entirely about the journey is more important than the destination, and it's not necessarily about how long it takes you to get there. It's about simply getting there. And so I guess in my life I have these two extremes where we have racing, all of this very detailed information available to us. And then on the other hand, with the Hokulea, there's none of that. And it's just about being in touch with nature. So it's been an interesting dynamic for me.
And that connection to nature, that respect and love for the ocean is going to be a theme that comes back. Because even though Mark is a professional sailor and a professional sailboat racer at that, the reason why he's doing it, the thing behind it, his purpose actually has more to do with those ancient Polynesian values, that respect and love for the ocean, that harmony and sustainability with the sea, than anything else. But interestingly, as much as there is that external draw, that connection to nature and that spirit of exploration of the world outside, there is also an internal draw too, and that has as much to do with the mindset of being a sailor as it does with the sailing itself.
I get addicted to the mentality of offshore sailing and even racing, because it's very singular focused and there's very little distraction. So, on land, we, run around and we have very busy schedules and everybody's doing a million things and constantly being pulled in different directions and, have all these distractions in front of us. And then you get on the boat and all of that goes away and you don't have cell phone service and nobody can call you. And you're just focused on one goal, which is very simply to get to the next place as quickly as you can. But the journey of doing that and working with a team and playing a role, and living in this 4-hour watch system where you get up and you do your job and you go downstairs and you eat and you go to sleep and you do it again. It's really refreshing, actually, to just turn your mind off and just to be focused on one thing. It's what keeps me coming back.
It is refreshing to turn our minds off, and we don't get to do that very often these days. That singular focus is so hard to find. We are constantly multitasking with work and family and life and texts and posts. It's exhausting. Literally, there is study after study that shows that when we switch between tasks rather than just focusing all our attention on one task, it drains us. It uses up more fuel. So that singular focus that Mark talks about, even though he's exhausted physically due to the demands of the race, and it is incredibly demanding, despite that, there's something relaxing, almost zen-like about it too. No multitasking, no other worries and concerns, just one singular focus. But it goes further than that too.
I really love the idea of simplicity and sustainability within sailing, and one of the themes that I always come back to is just how being on board a boat offshore is kind of like being on an island, and we bring everything we bring on the boat has a purpose. In fact, most things have multiple purposes, and everything is thought about and weighed, and there's no excess at all. And so we have just what we need to survive and absolutely nothing more. And I think that's a really interesting concept for how we could probably all be living on this planet.
Because at the end of the day, this planet of ours is a kind of island, isn't it? A big, beautiful island in space. Earlier, Mark mentioned that there are a lot of metaphors in sailing that you can take into other areas of your life. And this is a big one. Because there is so little space on board and because keeping the weight down on the boat is crucial, only the absolutely necessary is taken. Everything is valued and used. Nothing is wasted. It's a metaphor for a completely different way of life from the ones we are living today. And ultimately, that's what 11th Hour Racing is all about, Mark's team. And their message of protecting our oceans, of living sustainably with our seas, is what drives Mark to do one of the longest, toughest, and most grueling races on the planet.
Ocean racing is essentially a very prolonged game of chess. And it's about risk management and essentially, playing the odds and deciding when it's a good time to roll the dice and maybe split from the fleet because you think that there's an opportunity to gain based on the weather by doing so, or is this a time where you think that maybe there's a gain over there, but it's not worth the risk, and instead I'll stick with the pack. The boats that we race these days are so fast that to get from one place to the other, for example, to get from the East Coast of the States over to Europe, it's not like we just sail in a straight line. The boats are so quick that we zigzag all over the ocean, chasing different shifts in the weather, or potentially you could sail hundreds of miles out of the way because there could be more wind in the south, and ultimately that'll still help you get to your destination faster. When we're out there racing for weeks at a time, while a leg from, say, Spain to Cape Town could take anywhere from 20 to 30 days, we're pushing the boat 24/7, it really breaks down into this series of multiple races that happen every 6 hours, which is when we get a position report. And so each 6-hour sked, you're essentially graded on your performance, and you can gain 10 miles or you can lose a mile, or you can, I remember one sked where we lost 100 miles to our competitors.
Okay, a little background here. So Mark's taken part in 2 ocean races. He skippered his first one when he was just 26. And the story he's going to get into today was his second race. And he's now actually currently preparing for his third, which will take place 21-22. They're every 3 years. Originally, boat design was a big part of the race, and there was some flexibility on the kind of boat you could build, a little like Formula One. So there were lots of variations in the boats, and those variations affected their speed and other elements in different ways. Then, after the financial crash of 2008, the decision was taken to reduce costs by eliminating boat design altogether. So from then until the present day, all the boats that have taken part in the race were identical in design and weight, down to the most minute of details. And that's now changing again for the 21-22 race. So boat design is coming back into it. And actually there's lots of really exciting developments, including the addition of hydrofoils. And that's going to enable the boats to literally lift off the water at high speeds and race on these thin, fin-like blades. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting flying boats. But for the race we're hearing about, a game of chess is a good way to describe it because strategy was one of the only delineating factors between the teams. But in any year, it's a pretty good way to describe it because ocean racing is a mental game as much or more so than it is a physical game of endurance and skill. But that mental game isn't just about being smart. It's also about being tough.
We're in a very small space, in very uncomfortable conditions for a very long period of time and under a lot of stress.
I would not do well. I'm just going to jump in and say that me, hangry in a confined space, plus tired, plus seasick, is not who you want to spend your days at sea with. It would be like taking a big, hairy, bearded toddler on board, but with more vomit. And when I say days at sea, I'm not joking. The ocean race has 11 legs or stages, varying in length from a week to 30 days or more each. It takes 9 months to complete. They begin in October and they finish in June. These are 60, 70-foot boats, and that may sound a lot, but with crews of 10 people usually, it's not. The inside is cramped. People sleep on bunks on top of each other. They work 4-hour shifts in constant rotation, on and off relentlessly, 24/7. It's exhausting and emotionally draining. It's been called an adventure that borders on psychological experiment, which I love that too. Think of it like being trapped in an elevator with 9 other people, all of whom smell awful, whilst being worked to the bone, stressed out of your mind, and shaken around like the inside of a washing machine. And no matter how experienced you are, no matter how much you train and how badly you want it, everyone struggles.
We knew that it was going to be very physically demanding, and we spent a ton of time focused on our physical preparation. But what I entirely underestimated was the mental challenge and, actually how hard it is to be on a boat racing in that environment for 27 days at a time. And how do you, continue to pick yourself up and keep going? We're literally on deck racing, and then the next minute we're, in bunks literally on top of each other and having to do that for weeks on end. So you tend to see people at their worst, and how people respond when things are tough, when they are tired, when they are angry and upset and don't have the space to step away and cool off. How people respond in some of those moments is really important. One thing that sailors have in common is that you can always learn something from every experience. So there's always an opportunity to grow. And generally, I'd say you only learn from the mistakes. And so when something really bad happens, I kind of look at it as, what can we take away from this? How can we move forward? And that thought process really, I think, helps me to just keep moving forward.
That's something that I definitely try and do too when I'm traveling or on adventures or just in life. There's always hardships, there's always setbacks. But if you can look at those setbacks or that negative emotion that you're feeling in that moment of cold and hunger and tiredness as a moment for growth, then there's an opportunity in that too, a unique opportunity. Something can be learned or improved for next time or strengthened. And that can create enough of a positive to get you through it without sinking into that hopelessness and despair, which can also happen. And believe me, I know that too. Just get me hangry and seasick and you'll see. But enough of vomit. Let's get to the starting line. Now, the route changes each year, but in this incarnation of the ocean race, it was probably the most epic that had ever been done. It was the longest in history, 45,000 nautical miles. That's just shy of 52,000 regular miles to you and I. And to put that in perspective, It's called the Round the World Ocean Race. Well, technically at that length, you're going around twice, as that's basically double the circumference of the Earth. And there was also 3 times as much Southern Ocean as the previous race. And let's just say the Southern Ocean is not messing around. That's where things get serious. So the race is going to start in Alicante in southern Spain. It's going to sprint over to Lisbon, race down to Cape Town on the southern tip of Africa, and then west through the ice storms of the Southern Ocean to Australia, up into China, back down to New Zealand, across the Southern Ocean the other way to Brazil, then up to Rhode Island and the east coast of America, across the Atlantic to Great Britain, Sweden, and a final finish in The Hague in the Netherlands. Yeah. Mark picks up the story now, just about to set off a 1,450-mile sprint from Alicante to Lisbon.
It's an incredible mix of emotions. I think you're the day of the start, or even just before the gun goes off, you're extremely excited. You've been looking forward to this moment for a long time, planning for it for years. So to have that finally come is kind of this surreal moment. There's also on the other end of the spectrum a little bit of fear. I think there's always a little bit of fear, at least for me. Anytime I step on a boat and I'm about to, go offshore, there's an element of risk involved. And, and it's also hard to leave behind your family and friends and set off on this, challenge and this adventure. But, it's funny, like you put so much effort and time and preparation into getting to this moment, and then when it gets there, you're kind of like anxious and you're kind of on edge, and then the start gun goes off and you get into the watch system and you start to get into that rhythm, and all that goes away, and then you're just, I remember this. It's right back into the routine, and you settle in quite quickly.
The start of any ocean race is one of the most exciting parts. 7 teams, neck and neck, hungry to get that first win, that first lead. The preparation has been relentless to get here. It's been years in the making. The crowds are huge. Your heart is racing. And then the gun goes and it all begins.
The leg itself was really interesting because traditionally the first leg of the ocean race is a long leg, all the way down the Atlantic, oftentimes either stopping in South America or Cape Town. And in this particular edition, the first leg was a little bit more of a sprint, just 6 days from Alicante to Lisbon. So a slightly different mental approach to that a little bit. I'd say we pushed harder, knowing that the leg was going to be less than a week than, your traditional, 2 to 3 or even 4 week leg.
They pushed hard and it paid off. The first 12 hours were a drag race, all 17s bundled in a pack. And then Mark and his team split and headed towards the coast, chasing better winds. It paid off. They took the lead and never lost it.
Coming into Lisbon's amazing. We came in, I'd say just after lunchtime, but we had a lot of wind that last night, and then as we got into Lisbon, as usually happens, the wind died. So it took us 6 hours to do the last 10 miles, which was pretty stressful because we could see the boats behind us, charging into us. So to finally cross the finish line, just an amazing moment.
But they couldn't rest for long because the next leg was a 7,000 nautical mile juggernaut due south along the eastern coast of Africa to Cape Town. But to reach that final destination, they would have to cross the doldrums. The doldrums, or more officially the Intertropical Convergence Zone, is a band of weather around the equator that has been plaguing sailors for centuries. It's here that the north and south trade winds meet and get sucked up into the higher atmosphere due to the heat of the equator. The result is, more often than not, no wind. Sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. Occasionally, in the days before motors and satellite weather reports and phones, long enough to starve and kill an entire crew. Samuel Coleridge describes the doldrums famously in his 1798 poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Day after day, day after day, we stuck, nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. But despite the name and the reputation, the problem isn't only no wind. Sometimes it's too much wind.
There's oftentimes no wind, and then you can get these very defined and very powerful squalls and clouds that will produce a ton of wind. And so then you have to react to that. Oftentimes you could be doing all of a sudden 25 knots in the wrong direction, with a ton of rain and 30 knots of wind, with far too much sail area up. And so you spend a lot of time just getting the boat back under control and pointing in the right direction. And then the cloud rolls by and then you're right back to where you were 2 hours ago. So it's very dynamic and changes quickly, and you have to be able to adapt to those changes. And there's a lot of lead changes that happen. I mean, one cloud you can gain or lose 10 miles within an hour, and a boat that's 300 yards away from you could be on the other side of a cloud, and you could be sitting there in no wind, and they could be going 25 knots. Generally, the first half of the leg, you're trying to get as far to the southwest as you can, because the further west you get, the narrower typically it is, so you have an easier crossing. So you're constantly trying to balance the trade-off of getting south, which is toward where you need to get, but then also getting west to make your doldrums crossing easier. And then once you do cross the doldrums, then you have a nice downwind run around the South Atlantic High into Cape Town. So just some really fast sailing. In the past, that's where the 24-hour record's been broken. You get nice long ocean swell and good wind. So it's a very enjoyable leg of the race.
And Cape Town's a gorgeous city too. I think one of the most beautiful that I've ever seen. Table Mountain just rising up behind it like some beautiful castle balustrade. Clouds rolling off the summit like smoke. After 19 days at sea, they arrived in Cape Town in third place. 2 podium finishes. They were doing great. But next up was another marathon, and there was nothing doldrum about it. They were about to cross the Southern Ocean, one of the most dangerous stretches of sea on the planet.
Well, I'd say the biggest challenge is just simply the remoteness of it, and also the temperature. The Southern Ocean is a very raw place. You have these low pressure systems that essentially circle around Antarctica, relatively unimpeded by land, and so they generate a lot of power and a lot of momentum. And going down there means that you're going to be dealing with generally a lot of wind, big waves, and cold water. And the cold water is what makes it, I'd say, the most dangerous. If you were to fall off, hypothermia can set in quite quickly, and it's also just a challenge to deal with frostbite and have all the layers on. I mean, it takes at least 30 minutes to put all the gear on before you just go up on deck for your watch. I'm wearing 5 to 7 millimeter neoprene gloves on my hands and balaclava on my head and thick wool socks and multiple layers of fleece and merino wool underneath all the hot weather gear and the life jacket, and it's a lot of stuff. So it's a physical challenge, and then over time, as you get tired, it becomes a mental challenge. But that's what makes it really rewarding.
It might be rewarding, but it's also no joke. Scientists recently dropped a high-tech buoy or buoy, depending on what side of the pond you live on, into the Southern Ocean to measure just how gnarly the waves get down there. The biggest one they measured was a gargantuan 64-foot beast of a wave. You know that scene in the movie The Perfect Storm, right at the end where their ship is basically swallowed by this enormous wall of water coming straight at them? Yeah, it's bigger than that.
It's exhilarating. It can be, scary at times. There's a ton of water coming over the deck. So, yeah, you got to have a ton of respect for the ocean and the elements, especially in the Southern Ocean. I mean, you're on this a very microscopic piece of machinery of your boat, it's you definitely feel small down there and relatively exposed. We were in a situation where we were in 30 to 40 knots of wind for days on end, and that felt, as crazy as it sounds, kind of normal and somewhat stable. But then every now and then you'd get this cloud that would roll through, and you'd get a 60 or 65 knot squall, and you just got to ride it out. I mean, you've got 3 or 4 people on deck, and you'd need the whole crew to get up to reduce sail area, and that would take, as I said, 20 to 30 minutes. So it's not like you can just snap your fingers and put away the sail that's up. So you just sail low and try to ride it out and stay calm and do the best you can. But you definitely feel like you've found the edge of what's reasonable.
He's being cool. This is way beyond the edge. 65 knots is 75 miles per hour. Most sailboats go about 10 miles per hour. And if you were to look at a boat towing a water skier, well, at the most, that boat is doing 35 miles an hour at the absolute most. So it's twice that. And your average sort of cruiser boat, the ones that people like to show off with, well, they don't go much faster than 50 miles an hour, even if they're really pushing it. And the fastest motorboats in the world, those little cigar-shaped thin ones that are designed purely for speed, the ones that really only James Bond drives, well, they can maybe do a little faster than that. They can do about 90 miles an hour. But here's the thing. Those guys can only do that in calm water. Mark was doing 65 knots, 75 miles an hour in seas where the waves could reach as high as 30 foot tall. And this is a sailboat. So there's no brakes on this. There's no quick or easy way to slow down. He just had to ride it out. And he did, and the team made it to Melbourne after 14 days of continuous, hard, freezing cold sailing with another third-place podium finish just hours behind the winners. But then, disaster struck. On the next leg 4, which was from Melbourne to Hong Kong, it was the middle of the night towards the end of the race. They were just 30 miles from the finish, just outside of Hong Kong waters. They were sailing about 20 knots and on course for a second place finish when suddenly and without any warning, they collided into another ship. It was a group of 10 Chinese commercial fishermen. They were unregistered. Their ship sank. 9 people survived. 1 didn't. I'm not going to go into this too much. Mark didn't want to talk about it, and I respect that. But I do just want to say that he did everything right. He immediately called a mayday. He embarked on a 2-hour search and rescue attempt, even though his own ship was broken, and he helped to save the lives of many of those fishermen. It wasn't his fault, but it's something that he's obviously deeply saddened by. He could have quit then. Many people would have, but he didn't. Against all the odds, him and his team repaired the boat and they rejoined the race in Auckland, New Zealand, having just missed 1 leg. They were down, but there was still a chance. But in order to take it, they'd have to complete another marathon leg on the Southern Ocean, this time heading back east 7,600 nautical miles to the shores of Brazil.
Once we were able to get the team and our boat back together, we rejoined the race in New Zealand and straight back into another Southern Ocean leg. And another very windy leg. It was important for us to come out on the right foot, and we got to Cape Horn after 2 weeks of extremely windy sailing in second place, which was an achievement in itself. And about 18 hours later, our mast broke.
Disaster struck again. Leg 7, Melbourne to Brazil, is the defining leg of this race. Not only is it the longest, with almost all of it through the roughest sea on the planet, there's also Cape Horn to contend with. Here on the southern tip of America, 3 oceans collide, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Southern, causing horrendous, unpredictable conditions. Before modern times, rounding the horn, as it's known, was rolling the dice with your life. An estimated 800 ships have wrecked here, causing some 10,000 deaths. And even today, it's no joke. They got through that. They were back on their feet from their tragedy in Hong Kong. They were racing strong. And out of nowhere, everything collapsed.
Fortunately for us, we were just about 100 miles from the Falkland Islands. Had that failure happened a week earlier, we would have been, could have potentially been thousands of miles from land. So we were very lucky and got to the Falklands, had to suspend racing and massive undertaking by the team to basically build a jury rig mast out of an old telephone pole and get the boat back to Brazil in time to get a new mast fitted for the next leg.
That's impressive. They actually built a makeshift mast out of an old telephone pole in order to sail the boat to the finish line and get it ready for the final legs. Winning was now sadly out of sight. But they weren't going to let that deter them, because in the end, it wasn't just about winning. It was about the adventure itself and the message.
One moment that really sticks out is when we sailed through the Malacca Straits. It's quite close to Singapore, and a very heavily, I think, if not the most heavily trafficked kind of navigation channel in the world. Just an incredible amount of marine debris. It almost felt like you could step off the boat and walk to shore. And very eye-opening for us, and just honestly sad. It just kind of makes your heart sink a little bit. I studied environmental science in college, grew up very, with a strong connection to the ocean. And once we learned about what participating in a global event like the Volvo Ocean Race, or now the Ocean Race, is, and how you can use that to, inspire and bring awareness to something, it was very clear what we needed to use that platform for. And so to inspire others, to raise awareness, and to lead by example. I think if we can do those things, then, win or lose on the sporting side, we will have ultimately won.
Ocean plastics is one of the great environmental issues of our time. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the naturally formed collection of marine debris floating in the middle of the Pacific right now, is, get this, more than 600,000 square miles big. That is 6 times the size of Great Britain, of garbage floating in our ocean. We are literally poisoning the lifeblood of our planet through our addiction to plastic. And that's why Mark and his team are racing, because it is the 11th hour. So after Brazil, they headed north to Newport, Rhode Island, placing third in Mark's co-captain Charlie Enright's home port. Then from there across the Atlantic to Cardiff, then Gothenburg in Sweden, and finally the finish in The Hague in the Netherlands. They didn't win, but they did finish. And in that most grueling of races, and considering the setbacks they had, is victory enough? Like those early Polynesian explorers said, sometimes it's about the journey. Sometimes getting there is enough. And he learned a lot along the way.
If we can, in our tiny little boats, zip across the world's widest oceans in just a few weeks, what it tells me is that the planet really is not that big. And when you start to zoom out and think about how much life this planet supports, not just with humans, but just biodiversity in general, and how small and fragile it is, it's really incredible. I think it's one of the things that sailing and ocean racing has taught me is that the planet is small and it's quite fragile, and it needs looking after. I've definitely gone through a mental shift as it relates to the ocean. In my younger years, it was a place for me to relax and enjoy myself and feel connected to nature. And I still have all of those things, but now with the experiences that I've been fortunate to have and the understanding of just how in trouble the ocean is, I think my perspective has shifted toward this amazing resource is in a global crisis, and it really needs our help. And so I feel this sense of responsibility to do something about that, and to try to act on it. And so I'm very hopeful that through our team and this next sailing campaign that we can try to play some small part in bringing about some change for the better.
And I will just add to that and say, Mark and his team, 11th Hour Racing, are looking good to win on both counts in the 2021 race. So keep your eyes open for that. You can support the team and their message and follow in all their preparations in every step of the big race at 11th Hour Team. That is 11THAR HOUR team. And that's across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They're also on YouTube, some really cool videos up there. And you can also sign up to their newsletter at 11thhourracing.org, where lots of cool projects are going on. And if you love the ocean and want to get more involved in its protection, that is a really cool place to start. I'll put everything up on the website, armchair-explorer, along with trip ideas that you can book, background reading, maps of the race, some cool videos, photos, and more. So if you enjoyed the episode, please do check that out and let me know. I also want to give a final shout out to my buddies over at Karoon Sunglasses. Thanks for connecting me with Mark. Thank you for making this story happen. They are providing the shades for Mark's crew, so that's how cool they are. I love the work they do. I love that they are helping to keep our ocean free from plastic whilst making us look cool. So check them out at karoonworld.com. That's KARUN world.com. And finally, of course, to you guys, thank you for listening and thank you so much for supporting the show. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and tell a friend. Let's spread this message of love for the outdoors and for adventure, because this planet of ours is an amazing place. And the more we look for the wonder in it, the more the wonder of the world becomes a part of who we are. Dare to be truly alive.
Travel doesn't always go to plan, and that's where the best stories live. Welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast, where you don't just hear about travel, you feel it. I'm James Hammond, and I'm podcasting my own journeys from the road, sharing immersive soundscape episodes that drop you right into the moment, from busy streets to remote mountains. Along the way, I sit down with local people and fellow travelers to tell honest stories about life, culture, and chase an adventure beyond the routine. No filters, no fake perfection, just stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Search Winging It Travel Podcast on any podcast app and let's wing it.
Hi, I'm Mike Siegel, and man, oh man, do I love talking about travel. You think I'd get enough of it touring the world as a stand-up comedian, or just going off on my own personal adventures around the world? No, when I get home, I still have to talk about it. That's how much I love travel. So every week I sit down with a friend, a travel expert, influencer, expat, or anyone from any walk of life who shares my passion for travel. So if you want to hear a fun, casual, off-the-cuff chat about travel from people who love it, listen to the Travel Tales podcast with me, Mike Siegel, wherever you get your podcasts.